In this video, we will be going over lesson 15, which is about unit rates and equations. Okay, our first question. We want to know which equations represent a proportional relationship, and we want to select all that apply. For this question here, I would recommend using a calculator, first of all, because there are decimals, it make it a little bit easier, and because these fractions don't necessarily look the easiest to simplify. Now, you might notice, for example, on A and C, we have these variables, right? On C, I have both of these x's attached to my top side, my numerator, and on A, I only have one x here. Remember that with proportions, you need to have the same units on top and like the same units on bottom. So since on this letter C here, I have two x's. I have an x on my left side and I have an x on my right side. This is okay. Think of x as just a label or as a unit. However, on A, since I do not, there's just this one here, A is immediately wrong because I don't have the same units, you could say, in my numerator. So all that we need to do now is type each of these into a calculator and see which ones simplify to the same fractions. If I take B, I have 4 over 13. Oops. I'm just going to leave it as a decimal. And then I have 6 over 19.5. When I look here, both of these decimals are identical, which means that these two are proportional because they reduce to the same number. Let's check C. For C, I have 7.5 over 3, and I have 10 over 4. Both of these reduce to the same exact fraction, so that means this is proportional. Let's take a look at D. Very last one, 3 over 7.5, oops, not 8, 3, and 10 over 4. These do not reduce to the same fraction, which means that this bottom one is not proportional. So for this one, you're typing them into a calculator to see which ones give you the same fraction. And also make sure that if you're given a variable, treat it like units. Okay, if I have a variable on the top on my left, I need to also have one on the top on my right. And if I do not, then they're not proportional. The next one says, does the equation 7 over 3 equal 8.75 over 3.75 represent a proportional relationship? Why or why not? Okay, well first of all, let's just type this into our calculator to see if we get the same thing. So I have 7 over 3, and I have 8.75 over 3.75. There we go. It looks like they do give me the same exact decimal, which means yes, they are proportional. So yes, they are proportional because 7 over 3 equals 8.75 over 3.75. Notice how this one also says yes, however there's this does not equal sign in between. Don't pick that one because they are equal. Our next one says that the cost of C of paper towels is based on the number of rolls given by the equation C equals 1.29R. What is the unit rate of the cost of paper towels in dollars per roll? So for these questions, when you are given an equation, your unit rate is whatever number is attached to your variable. So here I can see this 1.29 is attached to my variable, right? They're connected, they're right next to each other. It's next to that R, which means that 1.29 is my unit rate. And that is all that you're doing here. So when you're given an equation, look for which number is attached to your variable, and that is your unit rate. Last question says the table represents the number of cups of flour needed F based on the number of batches of muffins made B. Which equation represents the amount of flour needed F baked to bake B batches of muffins? For this one here, all we need to do is figure out what our unit rate is, and then we need to pick our equation that has that unit rate. Remember, when you are given a table, your x comes first and your y comes second. I need to write this as y over x. So I'm going to use these 2 points here because they're the smallest and there's also no fractions. I'm going to use this point 3 and this point 2. So 3 is my y and 2 is my x. which means my unit rate is going to be 3 over 2. So once I know what my unit rate is, I'm looking at 3 over 2 and I don't see any over here, so that means that it might be written as a decimal. If you don't know what 3 over 2 is as a decimal, you can type this into Desmos really quick and it will tell you that it is also known as 1.5. So right here I can see I have an equation with that 1.5. 1.5 is my unit rate, so that is the equation that I am going to pick. Alright, and that is all that I have for lesson 15. Let me know if you have any other questions.